Hi, this is Dr. Vicente, and welcome to the final webinar of Educ1050. For this particular session, I'm going to talk about three important themes. First, I'm going to remind everyone about what the purpose of this course is. Secondly, I'm going to bring you back to the final target article that we encouraged all of you to engage with in relation to how you prepare for your final assessment task. The third and final part of this brief webinar looks at the 6 different components of your critical reflective portfolio. This final section of this webinar also showcases 2 examples of portfolios that we hope can inspire you, can give you ideas as you prepare your own critical reflective portfolios, capturing the insights and lessons that you have learned as you try to take a look at how technology can be integrated into teaching. Let's refresh ourselves by looking at one of the earliest slides that we showed you as you began your journey in EDUC 1050. And this slide essentially is about Bill Gates and some choice words that he spoke about. He tells us that really, in the midst of all the developments in technology and its relationship to teaching, you, the teacher, are most important. That is why this course was really developed to make teachers efficacious. It was not important for you to be familiar with as many software applications as possible. No, what we were looking at was for you to be familiar with the skills of curation, collaboration, creation, and critical thinking. And these are the skills that we want to assess when it comes to your critical reflective portfolio. The target article that asked you to ponder upon was about the portfolio. And in that article, 3 metaphors were used: the sonnet, the mirror, and the map. The sonnet, if you remember in the article, tells about the limitations in structure, in form, of how you're going to communicate the lessons that you have learned. In the target article, it talks about the limitations of the sonnet. The structure of the sonnet limited to specific lines, specific numbers of words. But in that structure, it provides a lot of strength. Its succinctness allows it to be able to relay a very important message. As you prepare for your critical reflective portfolio, we want you to be aware of the limitations of the structure that you have. We all encourage you to use digital portfolios. The second metaphor is the mirror. And here, what we hope to see in your critical reflective portfolio is a reflection of yourself. We want to see that, but more importantly, we want you, the pre-service teachers, as you make your critical reflective portfolios, to see yourself as if looking at a mirror, looking at your journey from the beginning of this course until the present time, particularly how you have navigated the challenges of integrating technology into teaching. The third metaphor is that of a map. So your portfolio will be a sonnet, a mirror, and also a map. A map as it helps us see the different points of your learning journey. It becomes a map because it provides us with evidence, artifacts of the highlights, the challenges, and the issues that you experience while you are navigating in your journey. So that's the second part of this brief webinar. Now we move on to looking at the 6 different components of your critical reflective portfolio. The first component asks you to elucidate, explain in some detail your teaching aims and goals. The images that you see there are images of myself. I was a teacher many, many years ago. I started teaching in Spain, and these are my students. This phrase here, down below, stands for se quema. It's a Spanish phrase that means burnout. Until now, this is part of my advocacy. I believe that teaching is so important. It demands so much from ourselves that if we don't take care of ourselves, there's a danger that we can get burnt out. And if we get burnt out, my hypothesis is that that's really the end of our teaching career. It's very difficult to be rescued when someone is burnt out in teaching. So, an important part for all of us teachers to make sure that we are fortified for the challenges ahead is to be very clear about what our aims and goals are. When you proceed and progress in your teaching career, when you meet those points when you are going to be promoted, your reporting officers, your supervisors will ask you about your teaching philosophy. Well, this is already a practice for you to start thinking about your philosophy. We don't expect you to write about it, but at this stage, we'd like you to think about the aims. What are your aims? What do you want to be? Why are you in, in the career of teaching? And the goals. What timelines have you set yourself in relation, for example, to the specific question of teaching and technology? So that's the first section. What are your teaching aims and goals? Make it as succinct as possible. The second section is the more substantive part of your critical reflective portfolio. Here, we remind you about the framework that all teachers in Australia are asked to abide by in relation to how we integrate technology and teaching. Of course, this is TPAC, Technology, Pedagogical Content, and Knowledge Integration. We've talked about this. We've asked you to engage with this framework all throughout the semester. We've also asked you to consider the SAMR model: substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. How have you used technology integration in the assessment tasks that you undertook while going through the EDUC 1050 course? So we'd like you to reflect on this. Has TPAC been an enabler? Has it been something that held you back? Was it a concept that was so difficult to understand? How about when you use technology in your assessments? Did you use technology to substitute? Did you use technology to augment? Or did you use technology in the more challenging ways, that of transformation, via modification or even redefinition? So in this second part of your critical reflective portfolio, we'd like you to really focus on TPAC in the teaching experiences that you have undertaken whilst doing EDUC 1050. The third, fourth, and fifth sections will look at the first three skills that we hope you are able to take away from this course. That's very important. If you ask me, as a course coordinator of this course, the one who created this course and managed this course, if you ask me what I hope each student who completes EDUC 1050 should have, is very simple. I hope that each student who completed EDUC 1050 has an awareness and perhaps an inclination to embrace or to know more about the skills of curation, collaboration, creation, and critical thinking that technology and teaching requires all of us teachers to do. In this third section, we ask you to reflect on the first group task that you did, creating an online resource, which essentially is a manifestation of how we as teachers need to harness our skills at curation. We suggested that you engage with the platform of Pinterest. So we'd like to hear your thoughts about this. What are your reflections? Was it an enabler? Did it limit the way that you curated? Did it open new ideas for you? Were there questions that you want to be answered in relation to the skill of curation? The second skill we'd like you to do, and the fourth part of your critical reflective portfolio, is reflecting on the second group task. We ask you to create an online assessment task. Really, the more important thing was for you to collaborate with each other in creating a task for your students. In this particular group task, we ask you to look at Prezi. We ask you to use Prezi as a platform. So this section will be an opportunity for you to talk about the challenges that you encountered working as a team, collaborating and creating a relevant assessment task for the target learners that you identified for the specific discipline areas that you chose from the curriculum for your group assessment task 2. We now ask you to reflect on the third skill, and that of creation. If you recall, for your group task assessment 3, we ask you to create a micro lesson. The first was an online resource tool. The second group task was creating an online assessment task. The third one was creating a micro lesson that could include resources, that could also include online assessments. The point is, we wanted you to create, to build something new, incorporating the skills of curation and collaboration, and now really putting your heads together in a team to build from nothing, to create. The platform we asked you to use was Powtoon. In this section of your critical reflective portfolio, we'd like you to reflect on the issues and challenges that you encountered while creating a micro lesson. Was it something that you felt empowering? Was it something that was disempowering? What do you think about Powtoon? The limitations that Powtoon imposed on you? Share with us your reflections. The final part of your critical reflective portfolio requires that you make a concluding statement. And it could be a direct response to this question. What are your insights in relation to technology and teaching? So we'd like you to make a very explicit statement about what you see yourself now as you continue your journey as a learner. We hope that all of you have become critical reflective practitioners, following Donald Shawn's example. If you recall, a critical reflective practitioner essentially desires or never stops learning. I think this is the answer to the first point that I brought up, the idea of sekama, burnout. Really, my hypothesis is that if someone gets burnt out, it's really too late. That person has fallen out of love with teaching, and it's very difficult to resuscitate one's passion and love for teaching. So the only way to address that is to actually embrace the notion of constantly learning as a teacher. And Donald Shawn defines it very nicely as becoming a critical reflective practitioner. Think about it. If we are not learning new things day in and day out as a teacher, it will be very difficult to continue doing this task, facing a multitude of challenges, facing different kids every day in our careers, in our adult life. So we'd like you to talk about what you have picked up in relation to technology and teaching. Technology is also something that is ubiquitous, it's all over, and it's something that you will not be able to avoid as you continue your career in teaching. So those are the 6 parts that we hope to see in your critical reflective portfolio. In this third section, I also want to show you 2 examples of critical reflective portfolios. Now, to clarify, The question that we asked students of EDUC 1050 last year was slightly different. We wanted them to imagine what their future classroom was. We wanted it to be a critical portfolio, but the question was a bit different from the question that you're facing now, that you're confronting now. Your question is broader. What are your insights in relation to technology and teaching? The question that they faced last year was, how do you use technology in your classroom? So when you take a look at these examples, keep in mind that the question that they addressed was different. Let's look at the first example.
To me, education is the key to unlocking potential in everyone, to allow students to be whoever they want to be. In such a rapidly changing world driven by technology, it is vital that we include ICT into classrooms across Australia. Throughout learning tools for the 21st century, I have learnt a lot about how I can incorporate information communication technology successfully into my future classroom. As I critically reflect on this course, I am imagining the action I will take to make my classroom fun and engaging for all students. It is important to me that all students are catered for in my classroom, and using technology will be crucial in achieving this. This course has allowed me to gain several insights into incorporating ICT into my classroom. These are the need to keep lessons engaging to minimize distraction, using ICT to cater for all students and learning types, and promoting learning communities and lifelong learning within the classroom through the use of ICT tools. Watson states, "The technology is everywhere and no longer the preserve of education and business. ICTs are now integrated into the operation of much that makes society function." To be able to thrive in this modern society, a clear understanding of ICTs is a must. Students will not only need to be able to keep up with the pace of ICT development for their jobs in the future, but ICT can also help increase the curiosity and community necessary for lifelong active learners, another skill needed to thrive. In this Prezi, I will be discussing how I am going to act on these insights while linking to the Level 6 Investigating with ICT Australian Curriculum Capabilities in my Year 10 German class studying German history and how to apply past tense. As this is a senior languages class, the behaviour will most likely be sound with mostly well-achieving students. Having come from grade 8 and 9, students will most likely know how to use the appropriate ICT tools. However, by being approachable and actively asking students how they're finding the task, I would be able to identify students who are unsure and help them appropriately. There will still be various learning styles and all students will find different concepts more or less challenging. I believe using technology would help me cater for students who need to be extended, while also supporting students who need some extra help. Most high schools providing German as a subject are generally higher socio-economic areas. This means they will most likely have a one-to-one laptop scheme, especially in grade 10. Incorporating ICT seamlessly into my classroom plans will be a focus each week for me. To start lessons, Kahoot would be used to assess the student's level of understanding from the previous lesson's homework. This activity would never be formally assessed, but would be used so the students could see how they were going and monitor their own understanding of the homework content. Pintrick and Zusho include this as part of self-regulated learning. Self-regulated learning is an active constructive process whereby learners set goals for their learning and monitor, regulate and control their cognition, motivation and behavior, guided and constrained by their goals and the contextual features of the environment. Padlet would also be frequently used in my classrooms. Here, students will be able to post anonymous questions throughout the lessons which we could address as a class at the end of lesson. This allows for other students to be able to teach their peers and encourages collaborative learning. Being able to find German resources online is difficult from an English computer. To show the students different search techniques in German, as well as several different German search engines, I would use a site such as Powtoon to create a digital story explaining different search techniques. This would help them with investigating using ICT by being able to choose keywords to define and plan information searches. The information as a digital story will help engage student and keep learning student focused. The Powtoon would be viewed at home and the research would happen in class as a flipped classroom approach. This allows students to view and review the Powtoon on any device, and studies have shown that students have responded very well to the flipped learning approach. This is an example of what the Powtoon would look like. Hallo Kinder, heute sprechen wir über wie man im Internet auf Deutsch sucht. Erst muss man eine Frage machen und Schlusswörter identifizieren. Vergessen nicht, dass wenn man eine Frage hat, kann man immer mich eine Frage stellen. As further preparation for their final task, I would ask students to use the skills they learned from the Powtoon and search for different German articles about certain time period in Germany's history. By doing this, they would have to locate, generate, and access data and information. Each student would only have to find one or two sources, which they would collate on a group Pinterest board and go through with two or three classmates, picking out keywords, translating and identifying key dates, names, and use of past tense. Essentially, they would have to select and evaluate data and information by working collaboratively. The Level 6 ICT capability, investigating using ICT, fits well with studying German history. Assigning students with an assessment with a research component is an obvious way to let them use this capability. As well as using technology, research also allows them to use self-directed learning, collaborative learning, and work their way through Bloom's taxonomy, focusing on the middle stages of analyzing and evaluating. One example of a possible assignment task would be to create a news segment based on a certain time in Germany's history. For example, a news show from the Ottoman Empire discussing the major events going on at that time. I would allow students to have freedom with the style and targeted audience, as at the end of the day, it will be the ICT use in the research stages of which the proficiency levels will be obvious in the final task and the language that is being assessed. Asking the students to film a news segment allows them to practice both writing and speaking in German, and the research will help them with their listening and reading. To accommodate different learning abilities, sites such as DW.com will be exploited for their abundance of online German learning tools to help students who may be struggling. As well as this, a bonus task would be set up for any students who want to further extend themselves. This would be to write a short biography as if they were a famous influencer in Germany or Europe's history, for example, Napoleon. As with any class activity, there will be many challenges faced while using ICT tools. When receiving feedback from students from Ipswich, one point raised was the likelihood of students getting distracted. I believe, however, that my lessons will be engaging enough so that students will not be likely to get too far off track. This was highlighted in the feedback from one student from Ferny Grove State High School when they said, in reference to a fun Pinterest board, this would definitely get kids involved because from what I saw, they were entertaining and you could still get knowledge out of it. I would also make sure I wander around the classroom and actively take an interest in what students are doing. Cyberbullying is also a major issue, and to help combat this, I would include a slide about it in my Powtoon, as well as making sure I stay alert to any effects of cyberbullying in my classroom, such as students keeping to themselves and no longer engaging with friends, students minimizing screens quickly, lower self-esteem, and using hostile language. I would also try my hardest to stay approachable and try and gain students' trust so they would feel like they could talk freely to me about any problems. By allowing students to work in groups, I would also hope to create small communities within the class where students can look out for one another. By using chosen ICT tools and assessment tasks, I believe I would allow the students to achieve the Level 6 ICT capability of investigating using ICT, while also keeping the activities engaging and fun while catering for all students. Thank you for listening.
That was Sarah Perkins's presentation, and at the end, she has references, which is what we are looking for. Do take note that really what we are looking at is a different task for you as a group. Let's take a look at Belinda's work this time around.
Today I'm talking about critical reflection at the start of what I've learned so far in the semester, which is many new methods both for teaching and learning with ICT. It's been a definite learning curve with myself having finished my senior education quite a longer time than my fellow classmates. So I've learned a lot. There's also been exploration of ICT limitations, so I did already have some prior knowledge. Pedagogical insight is absolutely something I've learned a lot with, of the how and why we teach and how we can teach better. Investigating the ICT is, of course, the end goal for what we're trying to find the capabilities of students. You 10 students to demonstrate their capabilities. Both formative and summative assessment will be utilised to achieve deeper learning and understanding throughout. Ahead in this prezi will be classroom context, classroom instruction, classroom management, and classroom assessment. And of course, I've added this quite complex and rapidly changing world creates the need for self-initiative and self-managed learning, and technological advances provide the opportunity for learning, which I've added because I believe is absolutely true. Classroom context involves my Year 10 class environment, a typical Brisbane city area school, which is of 23 to 28 students. There will be an undeniable level of privilege, probably a well-off socioeconomic background, and its ability is largely consistent in these areas. The well-functioning classroom, which is likely well-funded, and a variety of options for ICT access. So not foreseeing many issues in that respect. The learning area we're focusing on here is literature and English, of how texts reflect the context of culture and situation in which they are created. So we'll be giving our individual students a research task which starts off working together but is in the end ultimately completed on their own. Students will randomly be assigned a familiar archetypal story, such as anti-hero or the Cinderella story, and they will be finding and analysing a variation of that story, whether it be from a different historical period or a cultural setting or some other change that's significant. So the brainstorming that I alluded to in small groups, despite the fact it will be an individual task, the brainstorming will enable people to throw out ideas, perhaps something that one student knows but another has not heard of before, and they can work together on culminating an idea for everyone. So students will need to use advanced search techniques to locate these comparisons. So for example, one student may be given the anti-hero and they may focus on Professor Snape from Harry Potter as the anti-hero and must find a different anti-hero to compare and contrast with. They'll be needing to find that and then create a presentation discussing the comparison and detailing different influences on subsections of course. Yes. Classroom instruction will include use of Stormboard as a brainstorming tool, which is of course clearly better, more advantageous than pen and paper, as you can move things around, cut and paste without actually physically doing so. The Pinterest board will be used for a bit of a cataloguing of their online findings if students so desire. And utilising search engines, of course, is going to be one of the meat of the project here. So applying Boolean search techniques to discover appropriate cultural resources will be very important. Cross-referencing what they find to ensure that they've got a reliable source, and rating it by primary and secondary. Giving and receiving feedback will be something that occurs 2 weeks before the final assessment is to be done. Descriptive feedback is very important for students, as shown in this quote here. It gives specific input on how to reach the next step in the learning progression.
I myself have found these synergy workshops we've gone through along the way in this semester to be fantastic help and moved along. I feel like it's something excellent that I'll be implementing for students in my future as well. Start of the presentation obviously will be the end goal with an essay either as a PowerPoint or a PowerPoint of 3 to 4 minutes. Some of the challenges that we may come across under classroom management here include tech. So the limitations of technology could include outdated software or bugs and malware, which I feel are probably one of the easiest challenges to overcome. Includes continually updating your software, making sure it is the most current and recent available, testing testing repeatedly your technology. I found myself through not testing prior to a presentation, the problems that ensue can be quite a problem. So testing things. Sometimes you can't avoid problems with tech, but a lot of the times a bit more preparation can help. Installing antivirus and anti-malware protection is, of course, a must-do for school environment. Student interest is something we must combat too, but I feel that this active learning is absolutely a way to stall students getting bored and disinterested. So students engaging with the material and participating in the classes is absolutely going to happen a lot more when you're inviting their participation. The student skill level could be changed as well with variations there, and different learning needs of the students mean that they may prefer a different learning mode, but can all reach the same end goal in the end. Students, some prefer visual, some prefer a verbal way of learning, but we hope to be able to enable them to present in the way they feel more comfortable at the end of this with the research tasks through their options. Student cyber safety as well is absolutely vital. So there is site blocking and firewalls always available, of course, anti-malware and antiviral software as well, encouraging discussion amongst your students and having an honest dialogue, as well as fantastic mini cyber safety course, I believe I'd call it, on the Student Wellbeing Hub, which I explored. It had everything from a task, a quiz enabling students to decide whether or not they felt like they should share something or not. It was really great. And teacher-focused course included the skill set must be up to date with the current text of what we're teaching students. We need to know what we're teaching. It goes without saying, we need to know what we're sharing. We need to be up to date and understanding of it properly. Having a willingness to learn, just like our students, we need to be able to put that on and have a knowledge-seeking attitude. Lastly, the classroom assessment. If students are there, we're going to assess that through summative assessment, which has been taking place throughout the process already as discussed, and the formative assessment to begin at the final presentation. The self-assessment can be utilised through Edmodo, which I envision as an overall accessible platform to students throughout all classes really, and is ideal for submitting individual reflections after the final presentation. The peer assessment is something that will happen throughout the process as well as at the end, and Socrative can be utilised for the latter. The final assessing plan is the ability of students to cite sources and reference where information comes from, which will aid in determining proficiency, so how well that source is done and how well they're able to draw the parallels between the two texts. And scientific methods will go some way towards demonstrating their investigating capabilities with ICT and the level of depth of the presentation itself. This is my references. That's it for me, and thank you very much.
Again, as you can see, these two examples are quite different from what we're looking for this year, but they're also similar. They're different in the sense that obviously they're longer because we allowed last year's students to submit from about 7 to 9 minutes. For you guys, it's 5 to 7 minutes, plus maybe some form of extension, and we talked about it in the lecture of about a minute, no more than that, right? Also, for the students of last year, they really focused on a specific imagined classroom that they will have in the future, in which they will introduce technology in teaching. For this year, for all of you, uh, what we're actually asking you to do is to critically reflect on your learning journey. What you can learn from these samples is how they used different types of visual material to prove their point. Sarah used Prezi and then incorporated Powtoon. She had clear ideas of what she wanted to do in relation to the classroom preparation, classroom instruction, classroom management, and classroom assessment that we were looking for in their assessment. Belinda had the same thing. She used Prezi, and then she talked about how she intended to use Pinterest, Edmodo, and different other social media as well as technology platforms. So these two were my students, and they provided really good examples of how they reflected on their experience, but their experience, their reflection was translated into a plan for how they will integrate technology into their teaching. Again, for all of you, yours is a portfolio highlighting 6 important aspects. One, your teaching aims and objectives, really your philosophy. Second, how impactful, how influential TPAC was or remains as you ponder upon the challenge of integrating technology in teaching and how you incorporated technology in the tasks that you undertook. Did you do substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition? And then the third, fourth, and fifth components of your critical reflective portfolio asks you to reflect specifically, precisely on curation using Pinterest, collaboration using Prezi, and creation using Powtoon. And finally, to cap it all off, we'd like you to consider listing down explicitly what your insights are as your final concluding remarks in relation to your critical reflective portfolio. That's our webinar for EDUC 1050, the final one. As I mentioned in the message, please do not hesitate to get in touch with your tutors and me as the course coordinator if you have any questions or clarifications. It was a joy interacting with you this semester. We wish you all the best in your continuing learning journey as teachers. Thank you.